Okay, Steve, your charts this morning take a look at the Trump administration's budget proposal and the impact it would have on domestic programs and the nation's rising debt. Let's start with spending on war and less at home.
Yeah, so this has not gotten a lot of attention, obviously, with the war going on. But the president a little while ago put out his budget plan for fiscal year 27, which begins October 1st of this fall. And you all remember Project 2025. This is kind of a little bit of a reincarnation of that. This would be the most dramatic resweeping of the federal government since certainly the New Deal, and who knows when beyond that. Now, I also want to emphasize this was prepared before the war in Iran started. So this is not about the war. This is about the president's other priorities. So let's start with the red. Red is bad, obviously. He's cutting stuff. He's cutting virtually every single domestic agency in the country, and even states' foreign aid programs get slashed. Labor goes down by 25%, Labor Department, rather. And what this would do when you adjust for inflation, it would bring spending in these departments down to extraordinarily low level. So, for example, the Labor Department would go down to levels of spending it hasn't had since 1976, inflation adjusted. The Agriculture Department, which administers food stamps, down to 1976. Others back into the 1980s or the 1998 and years like that. And meanwhile, down here, what's going on, you're having this massive 44% increase in the size of the defense budget. And then some related things. Veterans, of course, are part of defense in a sense of taking care of them. DOJ, terrorism, narcotics trafficking and so forth, prosecutions, got to fix our air traffic control. So he's got a few pluses. But boy, it's a sea of red ink for all of our major cabinet departments.
And Steve, the biggest plus, of course, heading to the Pentagon. Talk to us about how this is now potentially your second chart, the largest defense budget in history.
This is on an inflation-adjusted basis. We can say the largest defense budget in history, going all the way back to World War II. What he wants to go from roughly $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion. You can see some of our other recent wars here. You can see, for example, you can go all the way back to Vietnam. You can see in the early 90s, rather, the first Gulf War. You can see the Iraq War. And now he wants to go all the way up here. But even more dramatically than that, because it's coming from everything I just showed you before, it dramatically reverses the kind of détente, if you will, or the balance that the two sides had found in how our budgets are constructed. For a long time, domestic and defense spending were roughly equal as a percent of GDP. That was a kind of informal, as I said, pact between the Republicans and the Democrats. COVID pushed up domestic spending. We all knew why. But that balance stayed pretty much the same. This would be this dramatic reversal, an unbelievable reversal, in which defense spending would be twice as much as a share of GDP, and in dollars for that matter, as would domestic discretionary spending, all the other things that I just showed you. So there's been no remaking of the federal government of anything along these lines, really, in centuries.
And Steve, as we turn to your third chart, there'll be spin from the White House, of course, as to what this will mean. But give us a sense as to the impact to economic growth and also the nation's debt.
Yeah, so as we go into the campaign, this all should be great campaign fodder for the Democrats, simply to stand up and say, this is what he wants to cut, this is what he wants to cut, this is what he wants to cut. And what he's going to claim is that he's going to be bringing down the debt as a percentage of GDP. So you can see, of course, we all know the percent of GDP, debt's been going up, up, up. He's going to claim, and in his budget he claims 94% decrease in debt to GDP. The reality is debt to GDP is going to continue to go up. It's actually going to go up slightly faster than in the current budget, the current baseline, we call it. And how does he do this sleight of hand, this magic? How he does this magic is he assumes an unbelievable rate of economic growth, a rate of growth we have not seen on a sustained basis in decades and decades. He's assuming 3.1%. Here's a whole plethora of private and government forecasters. You can take your pick, but they all cluster right around 2%. And by the way, in the first quarter of this year, where he's already penciled in 3.1%, we didn't grow a fraction of that. We grew just over 1% in the first quarter of this year, so there's no way we're going to get to this number. So, budgets are always, as they say, dead on arrival. They are always involve a certain amount of creativity, shall we say. But this is a statement of what the president wants to do, and therefore for the Democrats needs to become a statement of what he would like to try to do if he gets away with it. And I think there's enormous campaign fodder for the Democrats in the midterms in all of this.
Morning, Joe. Economic analyst Steve Ratner, as always, thank you so much. And